You ready, Kevin?
Yeah, I'm ready.
I really don't have much of an opening statement. Is that we've had several discussions about the last game, and obviously we had last week to talk about the upcoming game, so I'm probably better off just to go right into questions instead of bore you with anything I'd have to say from an opening remarks.
Is Texas's offense better, different? How do they, from the last time you saw them a year ago?
I wouldn't say they're different. I think their philosophy is the same. It's from an outsider looking in, they want to become a power running team, variation to some formations and movements like last year. Try to get the safeties involved in the run game and throw it over the top. They're a better football team overall, not just on offense. In my opinion, because the quarterback's now gained some experience, he's played in some games, seems to have a better understanding of what they're trying to accomplish on offense. The running backs are making plays, running the ball effectively, which keeps their defense off the field more so than last year, in my opinion. So experience would be the main reason that they've improved on offense, in my opinion.
Was the off week helpful?
I think an off week is always good. You prefer to have it after the fourth game, and then again maybe after the ninth game or so. But we've been at it since first week in August, so it's good to give the players some time, and it allowed us to get on the road and recruit and try to be as thorough as we could up to this point in recruiting.
Do you know yet who your starting quarterback is going to be?
Well, I'm not sure. Wes is doing really good. They're going to cut off his, I'm sure I'm using the wrong medical term, they've got his leg in a immobilization product like they do everybody, and that comes off today. They looked at it a few days ago, and it was even better than what we thought. And so we have the off day today, and then he gets into a device that comes on and off instead of just being in a cast, for lack of a better term. So I don't think that he'll be out there practicing on Tuesday, but we're excited about the input we're getting, or I guess the feedback we're getting from the medical staff.
So it sounds like there's at least a chance that he could play on Saturday?
It's just hard to say. It really is, because, again, I used Kendall Hunter as an example, and some guys, just based on the type of injury, it's really hard to predict. But I know that when they said they were taking him out of the cast and they weren't putting one back on, that's a good sign. And then he's going to be in a brace or whatever you call those things. It's not really brace anymore, but they come on and off. So I think he'll be out there with us this week before the end of the week.
If you guys don't know who the quarterback's going to be this weekend, that means Texas doesn't know too. So is there some goods that come out of not knowing for sure who it is?
I think their staff would prepare almost the same. They know that we're going to run our plays. We can't wholesale change based on quarterback. We would play to JW's strengths if he was in there, just like we would with Wes. They are a zone blitz, man pressure team. And so in the football scheme, that doesn't vary a lot based on style of play. They're different than most teams that play a lot of zone coverage.
If Wes doesn't play on Saturday, are you pretty comfortable with what you saw out of JW last week in practice?
We really like what he did and how he performed and handled himself. We went from freshman to freshman. I made that point. That was the scenario was different than I've ever been in before. Bringing one guy along, and then you bring another guy in and bring him along, and neither one of them have any experience at all. So I think he's doing very well. Is there a learning curve that has to take place? Yes.
Do you buy into the notion that certain games are statement games, and if so, could this be considered one early on for this team?
I don't know that any of them anymore are statement games, and I've said this for a number of years. The way college football is set up in what I would call March Madness style, they are all important, and then you get into conference and they all count. So this is a big game just because you get a chance to get a leg up on where you stand in conference early in the season. But our Texas game and Oklahoma game and Iowa State game and Kansas State game, they all count the same in the standings. But we're certainly going to prepare and work hard this week and do everything we can to try to win this one.
Mike, you guys came so close to beating Texas before 2010. Just have watched the second half leads evaporate, and I think the mentality of these older players, the juniors and seniors, have you noticed how they have kind of changed the attitude? Like, not only do we hope to beat Texas, we beat them 2 years in a row, and you expect to beat them every year.
I think our players expect to win every game they play in, and they understand the importance of taking care of the football. And I said this morning on one of my media conferences on the phone, that tackling in space is becoming so important now. And the games that I'm sure you guys watch and that I watch, turnovers are number one in my opinion. And then secondly, getting guys down in space and keeping the 3 and 4 and 5 yard runs from becoming 10, 15, 25 and 30 yard runs. And our players prepare well, and I think they'll play hard, and I think they expect to win no matter who we play.
You talk about JW as far as just, it seems like he's a leadership figure on this team, even though he didn't win the starting quarterback job, and that's probably something that isn't too common. Can you talk a little bit about what makes him such a gravitating figure on this team?
Well, his great work habits. His dad was a coach. He's played at a high level in Texas, been in big games. And some players, just like some people, are willing to push themselves beyond what would be normal, and he's always done that. And when we run and do off-season conditioning and toughness drills with our team, he's at the front of all of them.
Before Whedon was the starter, he didn't perform in practice. He was just kind of a gamer, as we saw against Colorado. Is there some of that with JW as well? Maybe didn't play as well in practice, but maybe when the lights come on, he plays better.
I don't know. It's too early. Whedon's situation was in wrong offense. The offense that we ran before we made that change didn't really fit his style of play. Our quarterback needed to be really mobile, and we put him on the perimeter a lot, and he kept the ball, and Whedon certainly didn't flourish in that system. With JW, and again, he's just at the very beginning of his career, it's too early to really tell where he's at. I can just say that he's done everything possible to put himself in position to have success up to this point.
When you go against defensive ends like Texas has in Okafor and Jeff Coat, do you game plan against certain players like that, or do you just run your offense and maybe try to keep an eye on them or something?
I think both things you said are correct. You have to be aware of where they're at. Guys that are as talented as they are on the edge eliminate some points and some plays in your offense. But then you have to run your system. So you can't vary a lot, but you also don't want to isolate yourself versus good players. Not as much as in the NFL. Great pass rushers, and they set protections based on those guys. I know that we're not to that extreme here, but we certainly have to be aware of the type of players they have on the edge.
Do you think that could limit JW's ability to scramble, having such quick guys at defensive end that you usually don't see maybe from other teams?
Well, you have limitations because they're fast. Their scheme and where they line up, offensively, you can get leverage on them for the most part if you want to. Now, you have to give something up to do it. But their speed gives them an advantage on the edge. There's no question that they can turn flat and run guys down differently than other teams that we play throughout the year.
How have you seen David Ash grow as a quarterback, at least in 1 year?
Well, earlier he's got game experience now. I don't know how many games he's played in now. 10 or 12, something like that. So there's a big difference when a guy's played in 12 games and a guy's played in 2 or 3 games. And so he's got some experience, and looks like to me from the outside in he's kind of learned to play to the speed of the game. Seems to have a better feel for what they're trying to accomplish on offense. And he's not making as many mistakes and just maturing, in my opinion.
Is there anything to the thought that a guy like JW that is more mobile and can do more with his feet, you don't get a chance to see as much of that in practice because you blow the whistle quarterback's about to get hit? I mean, is that something that he can show you more in a game than he can in practice, maybe?
We see a lot of it. I don't think there's any question that we know JW has the ability to run, and he runs fairly physical for his position. We just don't want those guys to get hit in our practice. So, you know, maybe what you're saying is true. We'll find out a lot more Saturday because, you know, those guys obviously are allowed to tackle. So it'll be different for him. But it'll be a good barometer of him as a runner at this level. I think you bring up a valid point.
Does your comfort level with how much JW run change depending on who you're playing? With Texas, bigger guys, better athletes, faster?
Not really, and I addressed that a little bit in the post game of our Lafayette game or Louisiana game. Is that I think we have to let him play, and he's performed at a high level and got to where he's at now by his style of play. And I don't think we want to take his stinger away. I think we want to let him play.
How's Shelf been in practice?
He's doing good.
The reason I bring it up, you talked to him during media day, and JW's this focused kind of guy, and Clint was very open about how, yeah, it was something I had to get over, not being named the starter, and now all of a sudden he's one play away potentially Saturday.
He's done fine. He's practiced well, and he understands. And I think he realizes that he is close to being in there. And we had this discussion, you guys remember now, in August at the media day and all the way up until we played. And if you remember me saying that at some point JW's probably going to have to play, because if you just look at the history of our league, quarterbacks that start out early in their career, young, most of them at some point miss games because they get beat up. And I think it's happened all the way through. You can go through these quarterbacks with Robert Griffin and go back to Bradford and Zach Robinson, and I don't know, you start naming them off, and you'll realize that other guys have to play. So I think Clint understands that. Hopefully that doesn't become the case. Hopefully JW will stay healthy, or Wes will stay healthy, and we don't get to that point. But he needs to be ready in case that does happen.
Mike, you talk about Texas defense being a zone blitz, man pressure, style of defense. What problems does that create for them? The fact their linebackers are young, and if Hicks can't go, really young.
Well, they have the ability to match up based on whether they want to bring zone pressure or man. And, it's pretty simple football that the only downfall of a blitz or some type of a zone pressure, I guess maybe man blitz more so, is that, if the quarterback pulls it down and runs it, they're all chasing somebody and they're not looking. And that's really the downfall from a defensive side, in my opinion. Now, I'm not in their camp. I don't know what they're saying, but I know that just in general for football, that's one downside that could ultimately present a problem if there's a guy taking off running with the football.
You mentioned in the bye week you've got to get out and do some recruiting. As far as just unplugging and relaxing, do you try to watch as many football games as you can when you're not playing, or do you try to completely get away?
I don't really watch very many games. I probably watched less than 5 minutes of football until we finished hunting and cleaned the birds and got in the house, and it was the middle of the third quarter of the OU game, time I turned that game on. And then I was flipping back between them and Florida State and LSU and somebody else. And that was really all I saw.
So the birds weren't safe this time.
Well, if you'd have gone off of percentage of shells fired, they were safe. But if you fire off 150 shells, you eventually come up with 8 or 10 birds. So.
Texas is a team that's averaged 10 possessions a game on offense. A team that likes to wear you down on your defense. Is that something that? How do you stop them from doing that?
You got to stop them, and you run into teams that seem like that's their goal. Kansas State seems like that's they want to bleed the clock and keep their defense off the field, and Texas looks that way from the outside. and that question always comes up. Very similar to what people used to ask. The opposite was when we played Texas Tech when they had Leach. You know, how do you do that? How do you keep them off the field? Well, your offense has to move the ball and score, and in this situation, you have to stop them. You got to get off the field. That's really the only way to do it, because they're not going to change. I wouldn't think they're going to change what they really do, just like we're not going to change what we do. I mean, you have to play, and you got to run your plays and things that your players are comfortable with.
Talk about JW and having Josh Stewart out there with them, and you know, obviously he's going to look for other receivers. But do you think it adds a unique comfort level for a kid that possibly is going to make his first start on a big stage, to have someone that he's comfortable with out there like that?
Maybe. You know, I hadn't really thought about that. I kind of forget them being together because Josh played last year, but there could be a comfort zone there. Our offense and our plays are dialed into what the other team does, so we don't really dictate who we throw to for the most part. They do. And so maybe on a scramble, you know, seeing him come across the field, there could be some something he may be able to fall back on.
Do you see the Big 12 as a wide open league right now? It seems like there really hasn't been anybody establish himself as the team to beat yet.
Well, I think there's some good teams in the Big 12, and I think it's wide open because there's a lot of teams that are really good. And I don't follow it as close as you guys do. How many do we have ranked in the top 25 or 30 right now?
6, I think.
6, which is 6.
Almost.
So let's just say 65% of the league. And then you have a number of teams that are still getting votes, right? So I think there's more parity this year than there ever has been. And every year it's growing and more in that area, which is good. It's good for the league. It's good for the fans. It creates interest. It's hard on the coaches, but there's a number of teams that are good football teams. And somebody put the statistics on my desk this morning about, you know, it's funny, we graduated Whedon and Griffin and a guy at A&M, Tannehill. I don't know, maybe there's another quarterback who's a good player. And there's some kind of an offensive statistic out there right now where the Big 12 is just going through the roof again, offensive with numbers. And guy at Baylor's, you know, throwing for 400 yards, 350, 400 yards a game. So it's going to be fun to watch this thing. And I think there's teams that are good enough to win. And because of the style of play, I think there's teams that are good enough to win on the road in big games. So it'll be interesting.
What's your timetable on reps for quarterbacks? How long do you wait on Lunt to see if you can go and give Walsh more reps or Lunt more reps? What's your timetable for that this week?
Well, I'm going to guess that tomorrow that Walsh is going to get all of them because I can't imagine that Wes is going to practice. And based on where he's at, if he were to come around enough to give us something, most of his reps would come on a Thursday. And I'm just saying that based on, you know, having that leg in a cast, for lack of a better term, for a week. I can't imagine that he would be comfortable. Now, one advantage he has is he doesn't move a lot. He sits in a, you know, 6x6 box, and most of his game is there. So, you know, with him, like Whedon, we wanted him to progress, and then if something wasn't there, to throw it away. That's kind of the style of player he is. So early in the week, I would imagine it would be JW getting most of the reps.
How much do you change the offense if Walsh is the guy? Different styles.
You can't change it very much because everybody else has to learn the plays. And it's difficult to all of a sudden come in and put new plays in and the feel of a different offense, or not a different offense, but a number of different plays that everybody has to get comfortable with. So it's really difficult to change very much.
Not many teams have beaten Texas 3 times in a row. You've done it with Whedon and Blackman, but what would it mean to be able to do that, you know, with a new quarterback, new receivers?
Well, we'd like to do it just to do it. just to win the game, no matter who's out there. I think that as I said earlier, every game we play, they're all big games, and you just work hard and prepare and get the guys ready to go, and you want them to be able to play good football. We want to play sound, and we want to play good football and go play hard and let the guys have fun and enjoy being in the stadium and the atmosphere of big-time college football. Good? All right.